Hey, I'm Justin Trudeau, and I'm so excited to be here because I'm in California with another lizard person. He's a lizard person just like me, and I'm here with him in California, which he's turned into a communist shithole, just like I'm trying to do to Canada. We're both World Economic Forum stooges, but we have really nice suits. Look at our suits. And look at his hair. I just love him so much. Oh, look at him. Look at you. I'm Gavin Newsom. Look at me. I smile when I'm talking. So people think I'm a nice guy, but actually I eat babies. Yes, I do. I love them. They're delicious and I'm always eating them. And then I use their blood as gel in my hair. It's very exciting for a guy like me. I'm very happy to be here with Justin Trudeau.
Okay, that's enough. I
saw somebody tweeted that out today. I thought it was hilarious.
Okay, I'm off now. See you guys.
Yeah.
All right, so we usually have Eric on to do like these formal interviews and stuff. It's like whether it's his book or like, so you know what, I think the first
something
time
enriching and edifying. Usually.
Yeah, this is not going to be that tonight at all. Yeah, so I think we're supposed to do some kind of intro, right, Rob? Don't we have stuff that, like, we're supposed to tell everybody like, subscribe? Eric tells everybody never hit the notification bell because you guys have better things to do with your time.
That's right, but you might not have better things to do than watch this channel, so go ahead and hit the notify button. Because if you're already watching, I worry about you anyway, so
we started in the hurt. Eric making fun of my background and my thinning hair. So I
don't want to mention that.
Yeah, your beard, you really, like, you trimmed it down now, but there was a while this winter where you really let it go. Like, you
I decided not to shave it during Lent. And my wife, my mom, my daughters, nobody liked it. And I said, this is perfect for Lent. But then on Easter morning, I was like, okay, I'm shaving it now. I'm trimming
it.
Clean
up for the family.
It was interesting because I said on Holy Saturday, I said in front of my kids, I was like, okay, say goodbye. And like my wife knew it meant trimming, but one of my daughters was candlelight. She thought I was going to shave it completely. And I was like, I have a daughter who actually wants the beard. Most of my daughters hate the beard. So I was very happy. One of them actually liked it. So I was like,
when was the last time you were clean shaven?
I first grew a beard, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. I went for a little while without my whole life until about 6 years, I didn't have a beard though.
Because I don't think I've ever seen you without it until you posted your picture of your conversion. Like, you know, you posted the picture the other day about 30 years ago.
Yeah,
joining the church.
I did not have a beard until I guess about, I know we moved to Ohio before I grew one, and that was 7 years ago. So it had to be less than 7 years.
I usually go from November to June. And then when June comes, I'm like, just from working construction, I can't handle it anymore. It just gets too hot. Especially in New York, the humidity. So
he drops that humble brag about working construction about once a show, doesn't he?
At least
we get one of those, and then we get
I'm working construction. Oh, my head is my muscle. You know, that's
usually within about 10 minutes he'll mention his boat too.
The boat definitely comes out.
The boat, a few family references. We go like that.
Read a book, Anthony. Come on.
I'm reading Dominion for a second time from Tom Holland because we're interviewing Tom Holland on Memorial Day. So did you ever read Dominion, Eric?
I have not, no.
Okay, listen to me. This book, he started off, what happened was he wrote like a book on the origins of Islam and how like shady the origins of Islam are. Right. And Muslims got so mad about it. They said, you would never do this about Christianity. And he goes, I'll do it about Christianity. He goes on this mission to write this book on Christianity, and it blows his mind because he loved Greek and Roman culture. And when he really puts himself into Greek and Roman culture, he sees that it is so alien to what we have today. And he's like, the idea that like care for the poor and like care for the downtrodden and the weak, it was just so alien to those cultures that it shocked him. He's like, he couldn't believe how different the culture was in antiquity. And he just goes through this journey of showing how the cross and the crucifixion and Paul's teaching on monogamy and husbands treat your wives as Christ loved the church revolutionized the world, completely revolutionized the world.
There's a book by Rodney Stark called The Rise of Christianity. He's a sociologist, and he studied, like, from a sociological standpoint, how did Christianity grow so quickly? I mean, he wasn't looking at, he didn't say it wasn't divine, and he didn't say it was, just from a human standpoint. And one of the biggest things was the Christians acted so radically different from the culture, the Roman culture, the Greek culture. And one of the best examples that I remember, he gives other ones, was how when a plague would hit a town, all the pagans would leave and all the Christians would come in to take care of the sick. And they're like, why are you doing this? Like, because you're Jesus to me. And it converted like tons of people because it was so radically different. And people don't realize today that our culture, Western culture, what's left of it, I mean, most of it's been disintegrated, is Christian culture. And it's the reason, or I could say Judeo-Christian, just to trigger a bunch of people. The Christian culture was so radically different. Like just care for others, tolerance, all this stuff has a Christian basis, and it had nothing to do with like paganism at the time.
People don't even understand that the Black Lives Matter movement, the idea of the victim, like the victim being the one that we should hold up, that is a warping of Christian teaching. It really is. It's like we're swimming in Christian waters and people just don't know it. They're just so used to this ethic. Like I'm actually arguing with this I made a post about the Dalai Lama and how the culture of like Buddhist culture is just so different because they're not Christian, that like, a little boy sucking his tongue isn't so crazy to them. Like if you hear some of the stories that happen in Afghanistan, it's like, Rob, what are they called? The little boys that all the
Bakabazi.
Yeah, so it's like these Muslim men will just have these little boys and they don't consider themselves gay or anything. Like they just have these boys that they do things to. And it's like, if you don't have a Christian sexual ethic to guide you, that's what will happen. And this girl is arguing with me about the priest scandal, and I'm telling her, you're posting scantily clad pictures on the internet. If what those priests are doing is wrong, then so is what you're doing. And if what you're doing is not wrong, then either is what those priests are doing. The idea that there is a right and wrong is a Christian idea. Right. It's either there really is a morality, or it's all just a social construct. And we see when people think things are a social construct, like gender, what they do with that social construct. So either there really is a moral law or there isn't.
Right. And it really, in most of the Roman, like Greek culture, it was just the powerful, that was the law. I mean, that's who is right, is the one who has the power to make it happen.
Yeah, people love to bring up that the Greeks had democracy, as if democracy in ancient Greece looked anything like modern democracy. It had nothing to do with what we have now. It was the aristocrats and the powerful. They were able to vote on things. But if you were a slave, or if you were just a commoner, you never had a say in anything. Like Aristotle even talks about like how like positions in society are like ordained or something, right? Like it's like he thinks like people are born either of a position in whatever. I'm not going to get into Greek.
Well, I was going to say that the Greek concept of democracy, how it was done, I would argue, I'm coming to think that it was better because I was just listening to Jeff Dice today on the Tom Woods show, and he was talking about, and I've heard others talk about this, that we have to accept that elites rule, that in everything, no matter what, elites rule. The problem is we have the world's worst elites ruling right now. Yeah, and they're just awful. I mean, they're just the worst. But the idea that somehow if we get the people to rule us, that's going to be better. No, that's tyranny. That ends up leading to what we have now, which is the worst leading us. And so the question is, who are the elites that should rule us? And that's why a lot of people, obviously like Catholics, lean towards like a monarchy, because it's like, well, by birth, that's at least, in some sense, God kind of picks that one. Whereas it better than some like total democracy or a republic or something like that. But at the very least, we have to realize that elites do rule us. And so we just have to, we can't overturn that. What we have to overturn is, okay, which elites will it be that rule us? And it can't be AOC and Bernie Sanders and idiots like that.
So we're actually going to do a little bit of politics tonight, not like we did the other night. Like the other night, we were talking about Trump and stuff. We're not going to do that. But Eric and I have very similar political views where, like, I understand that libertarianism is not Catholic. It's not. But I kind of see it as with the situation. What?
Why not?
Well, you can explain it better if you want, but I would argue that it leads to licentiousness and things like that. But I'm like, even if it's not the situation we have now, I think libertarianism is a better option compared to anything that we have now. There is no Catholic option at the moment. And Eric and I both actually really like a particular libertarian who may end up being the libertarian candidate. His name's Dave Smith. Rob, do you have the clip of Dave Smith on Tim Pool the other night? So let's just play that clip, and then we'll see if the discussion comes off of that.
Here we go.
They sell it as abortion is a form of birth control, and so therefore we have to regulate them the same way.
Well, there's something interesting. However you feel about abortion, like whether you're pro-life or pro-choice or whatever, somewhere in between, there's something interesting about it. Abortion in a lot of ways kind of underwrites the entire cultural order that modern day liberalism is built off of. Even anything like the idea of like there's no difference between the sexes, or the like hookup culture, kind of like any of this like rejection of traditional religious and cultural values, all doesn't work if you don't have access to abortion. Because as soon as you don't have access to abortion, it becomes very clear where men and women are different. It becomes very clear what the risks of promiscuity is. Like there's just no like separating yourself from it. And it kind of is this force that pushes you back toward more of a traditional lifestyle. If you getting drunk and having sex with some random person can result in you having to carry this baby to term, like that is going to be a game changer in kind of like the post 60s sexual revolution interactions between men and women. And so I think there's something where it's more than just they believe like you have a right to an abortion. It's something where like they understand that this is fundamentally foundational to all of the cultural revolution of the 60s continuing, because we'll revert right back to traditional norms very quickly if you don't have this, which is also part of the reason why I oppose it.
I don't think that
you can turn it off, Rob. Now, if he didn't throw that last little comment about this is why I oppose it, because he sounds like he's speaking from Humanae Vitae. Now, as Catholics, we would go back further from abortion and say birth control, right? Birth control was the origin of this entire mess that we're seeing. But he's right, because in a sense, abortion is just birth control
That's what's being used for. Yeah, I mean, okay, so people don't know who Dave Smith is. So he's a secular Jew. He lived a pretty libertine lifestyle. He used to be pretty liberal and everything. He became libertarian, Ron Paul revolution in 2008. But he's still, I mean, he's by his own admission, he slept around, he drank, he did all this stuff. And then he got married, and he's got a couple kids now. And what I've noticed, because I've been listening to him for quite some time now, he's a comedian. That's his profession. And his shows are hilarious. I've seen it on like YouTube or something. They're hilarious. They're definitely not for children. But what's interesting about him is I've noticed over time he is becoming more and more traditional in the sense of culturally conservative. I mean, he's a libertarian. He's not conservative, but in the sense that he recognizes the importance of traditional culture to help a society. Like he realizes it goes beyond politics, and what really needs to be fostered is these traditional values. He won't say it quite like that. That's not really his language. But the point is like on this one, he's pro-life. He's completely, thinks abortion should be illegal and stuff. But I think he hits the point. It's funny because I was listening to this, and I was telling my wife this is great. And then Anthony's like, DMing me because he likes to annoy people like that. And and tell 100%. Me, you gotta listen to this. You gotta listen to this clip. And I'm like, I just listened to it, dude, and quit bothering me. But so he but the thing is though, like he hits the nail on the head with this and we have to recognize he's not coming from this. He does not have Humanae Vitae behind him. He does not have Catholic teaching behind him. He doesn't know any of this. He's coming to this as a secular Jew, basically. I'm saying secular Jew because I don't think he really practices a ton. I don't think he practices Judaism. In fact, I predict within 5 years he'll be Christian. But the point is that he hits the nail on the head in seeing that it really is. There's some foundations to the left lifestyle that they cannot give up. It's why we always say abortion is their sacrament, because you take that away from them and their whole house of cards falls apart. Just like if you took the Eucharist away from us, everything falls apart. Likewise, you take abortion away from them, everything falls apart. And like he said, everybody would have to change their lifestyle. And he's somebody who's actually lived the lifestyle for a while, and now he recognizes how empty it is. Now he's married and has kids. And that's exactly what we hope more and more people see. And that's what I'm always saying is, like, we have these things with the culture, like the left keeps pushing. It was birth control, abortion, homosexuality, now it's transgenderism. And Dave Smith's been hard on the transgender thing, like against it. And I feel like the transgender thing is the thing that is turning the tide some, because you see people like Bill Maher.
Bill Maher.
Maher, thank you.
Yeah, Bill Maher.
Of course, J.K. Rowling, some of the one of those other comedians. I can't remember the names. The atheist comedian guy. I can't remember his name now. The guy who was the Office.
Even Dawkins was on.
Yeah, Richard Dawkins.
The other day. Yeah, he was even saying about.
But the guy who was in the Office, in the UK Office, that guy too. They're all
Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, Gervais, whoever. Yeah, they're all totally seeing this. This is like, you've gone to levels of insanity now. I mean, we knew it was insane. Even birth control, artificial birth control, is insane, but it's not as obviously as insane. You can even smooth around abortion because you can't see the victim. You can smooth around homosexuality because you hide what they're doing behind closed doors, and you make it look like they're all just happy and stuff like that. Well, you can't hide some dude who's like wearing a skirt or swimming
and
in swim
insisting
competition.
on being in women's sports.
Right, exactly.
Or women with their forearms
Yeah.
stripped bare.
Yeah, I mean, and they're like beating like that boxer, the women, the dude who's women and like just pummeling these women. I mean, so I'm hopeful that actually they've gone so far that they throw people, they turn people back to some reality at least.
So when Dave was on with Rogan a couple months back, he actually was recognizing that human beings have this innate desire to worship. And he was saying that at least Christianity has a track record that we can see gave us the foundation for the culture we have today. Now, when you start taking that away, his thesis is, look at this new thing coming up. He sees it as a religion, and he sees it as, I mean, he sees it from a Christian lens, it seems like, right? Like it's like, okay, so people that see, okay, people have this religious intuition, things like that, but they're not recognizing is when you take Christianity away, you're seeing the rise of demons again. So like, if you don't see the demonic in the transgender movement, you have eyes, but you don't see, because if you look back and you go to the cult of Artemis Ephesia, her priests would have to castrate themselves, and they would be sex cults and orgies and things like that. All you're seeing now is this new priest class come up, and they're men wearing dresses and cutting their genitals off, just like the priests of Artemis Ephesia. And there's all this distorted sexual practice going on. It is just that they're worshiping Artemis Ephesia. They just don't recognize it as that. So I really think that you're seeing these demons come back up, and people may not call it that, but that's exactly what you are seeing.
Oh, look at the ancient world. How many governmental advisors in the ancient world were eunuchs? And now look at Biden's cabinet. I mean, we're just replaying history here.
I mean, the whole Biden administration, that's just a clown show. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable. It's demonic. By the way, Rob, if I interrupt you, it's just because I'm trying to imitate Anthony and not let you talk.
I'm conditioned very well.
Yes.
It's also, Eric has a hard out. Like, he can't stay for, like, he's got to go around 8:50. So we're trying to rush through the subject. So we may speak over each other a little bit, but I personally think, just seeing a guy like Dave Smith, it's almost like this is the new red pill, like people understanding oh, wait a minute, when you take Christianity away, this new thing comes up, and it's pretty scary.
Yeah, and also Dave Smith, I think he's influenced by the people around him, like Tom Woods, who's traditional Catholic, Ron Paul, who's Christian, Jeff Dice, I believe, is Christian. Some of these other libertarian figures, because it is amazing, because the libertarian movement, people who don't really follow it, I understand why they laugh. Their first thought when they hear libertarian with capital L party, they laugh. And I understand they should, because the way it has been in the past, there's reasons to laugh at. But the people who've taken control now, they're not all Christian. They're not all practicing like that. I mean, Dave Smith's not, but they're all very much understand that Christianity is a good thing and that you shouldn't do anything to, prevent its practice in society. And I liked something I think it was Jeff Deist who was saying this many times, was somebody said this, like, it's gotten to the point now where the first question you ask when you're talking about voting for somebody politics is, does this person hate my guts? Mm-hmm. Because like Robert Kennedy Jr. Running for president, Democratic Party, I think that's a great thing. I know Robert Kennedy Jr., if you list everything his policies, I'm sure I disagree with 95% of them. But I don't think he hates my guts. Yeah. I know Joe Biden does. I know Hillary Clinton does. I know AOC does. I know Kamala does. I know they hate my guts and they want everything that I stand for to be destroyed. I don't think that's true of Robert Kennedy, just like Tulsi Gabbard, who I know is wrong on a lot of things. I don't think she hates my guts. And so you get to a point where it's like, I'm going to support anybody on some level. I'm going to not vote for him in an election, but I'm going to support at least anybody who doesn't hate my guts running for office, because I mean, really that was the beauty of Trump. As much as I don't like him, I never thought he hated my guts. Yeah. And that's why so many people like him, because here's a guy who's part of the elites. I mean, the Dave Chappelle bit on him was just perfect. Yeah. Like, here's a guy who's part of the elites. He's in the house, smoking crack with them. And he comes out and he says, guess what we're doing in there? I'm going to tell you. And it's like, so all of a sudden it's like, okay, this guy isn't like Hillary, isn't like, Obama and the rest of them. He doesn't hate my guts. And so I'm going to support him.
Do you see an issue? Like when I look at a country like Hungary and I see that they're trying to, keep their Christian heritage and they're trying to have some like rational rules and laws that they're putting into place. They don't want mass immigration coming across their borders. And then I see the pressure that the UN is putting on them. And I see the international community coming around them and attacking them and hitting them with the racist card and, all the usual bigotry nonsense and xenophobia, not all the usual things that they're hitting them with. Do you think there's any scenario where the powers that be would allow a national divorce to be a peaceful thing where we say, okay, let's go our separate ways? I don't know how that could work.
Yeah, it's my hope and prayer, but I'm not stupid. I mean, I'm realistic that it's going to be very difficult. I think the only way a national divorce happens, and I do think it should happen, I think the only way it happens is if the left decide a state that's part of a blue state decides to leave, because the right isn't going to do everything we can to keep them part of it. If California wants to go, then it's like, okay, they, would anybody care? I mean, if California left, I wouldn't. No, I mean, it'd be great. And so, whereas if Texas wanted to go, the left, because they're so power hungry, they would do everything you can. So the idea, I think the only way it happens is Oregon or Washington or California, something like that, decides to break away. Now, why they would break away if the powers that be in Washington are left is I don't know why. But I mean, ultimately, I hope for a peaceful one. But I just don't see how it doesn't happen one way or the other. Because
I think if you get Trump,
we're too different.
I think if you get Trump winning, that would be the scenario, because you saw they were playing out those
I just don't think that's
going to
happen.
I know. They're not. But if you saw how they were playing out those,
the better way to put it is the way Rob just said. They're not going to let that happen. It's probably a better way to put that.
Yeah, you saw that they were saying if Trump had won the last election, California was planning on breaking away and things like that. And it's like that would be the only scenario where that happens. But at the same time, I mean,
now I do think there'd be too many stupid conservatives who'd be like, no, United States of America is ordained by God. We can't let them go. And I'd be like, no, don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out is what I would say to California.
There's a lot of Protestants who think there's a very like Protestant mindset where they confuse politics with their Christianity. And I know Protestants who actually will like go through the book of Revelation and try to associate America with the eagle and like in Revelation, like they really think like we're the center of the universe. It's very strange. And they really do think America was ordained by God.
Yeah. And it is insane. And that's the thing is like, that's a conservative conceit. I mean, every single empire rises and it falls. America is going to be no different. At some point, it's going to fall. So what I'm hoping is for a soft landing. I mean, that's ultimately because all the things you've seen in history of how empires, and yes, America is an empire, how you see empires rise and then you see them fall. We're following the script perfectly. And so the question just is, how is that landing? What's that landing going to look like? It could turn into a tyranny, a really bad situation. Or that's why I'm hoping it would be a softer landing where we have a breakup. Now I know people immediately will, but China or but Russia, and I'm just not convinced that China is the threat that people think they are. I mean, I think their government's evil. I think what they do to their citizens is evil. I'm not like a fan of China, but the fact is China has not shown the ability or the desire for expansion like America has, frankly. And so it's like, I just don't think that's, and I think there's so many different ways. It's like, you look at Switzerland. It's a landlocked country, small, doesn't have a lot, natural defense, something like that. Yet it can remain, nobody's overtaking it. And so it's like, if you have treaties and everything within the American states that are broken up now, you still can have that protection, because one thing people don't realize is we do have two major oceans on each side of us. Yeah. And that is a major defense. And the countries on north and south of us are not powerful. Yeah. And so it's like, sorry, Kennedy, but, basically, so we have, so I don't think we're in this great danger of all of a sudden Red Dawn happening. Red Dawn, by the way, classic movie, the original.
Love that one. 1986.
One of the greatest movies. I watched that, I taped that on VHS. Yes, I'm showing my age. I watched that over and over and over again. I love Red Dawn, the movie. I got my parents had on DVD. I grabbed it. I'm going to watch it again here soon, but that ain't happening anytime soon.
I mean, China can't even cross the Formosa Strait to Taiwan. I'm not worried about them coming to the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and they haven't shown some desire for world conquest. I mean, the funny thing is it's Americans who put that on other people, and we're the ones who are demanding that the whole world follow our lead, be part of, the reserve currency has to be the dollar. You have to be the unipolar moment, all that stuff. We're the ones doing it. And we're saying, okay, in this border on the other side of the world, we have to fight and send, billions of dollars over to defend. That's an empire action. China's not doing that. Russia's not doing that. And I'm not saying I'm a fan of China or Russia. I'm just saying, though, we're projecting our own imperial designs upon those countries.
Yeah, China has I was going to say China has a demographic disaster coming, the likes of which the modern world has never seen, and they're not importing millions and millions of immigrants to cover it up like we are.
Right.
So I think if they don't do something in the next 5 to 10 years, I mean, that's their sweet spot. Outside of that, I think it's massive decline for them rather quickly.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, we're either heading towards the end of the Roman Republic, which then becomes a tyrannical empire after that, or we're coming to the end of the empire, but we're coming to the end of something. I think everybody has that sense, we're already a bifurcated culture, right? There's no way that we'll ever be able to build something where we have cohesion with people who are okay with cutting genitals off of children and castrating children. There's no way to build any kind of unified anything. We don't even have agreement on water cooler talk anymore. It used to be where there was only 3 or 4 networks. Everybody watched Seinfeld. You come into work and talk about Seinfeld. You don't even have pop culture to unite us anymore. We're all streaming our own little thing. We're all breaking off into our own little corners of the internet. It really is a scary thing that there's nothing that unifies America anymore, unless you had a foreign entity invade us. That would maybe unify us.
And the thing people conservatives, I don't think, realize is that we do not hold the institutions of power. And so some type of violence against this, like an uprising like that, I think is just a fool's errand. And you saw January 6th is a perfect example. That wasn't a violent uprising, but they were able to use it to crush any type of dissent and any type of, and that's why I think peaceful secession is the thing that we should be pushing for, which I know the liberals aren't going to be as likely to want to make it happen. But let's think about that for a second. Like Florida, for example, they just had that stupid LGBTQ ABCDEFG organization that said, okay, we're declaring Florida not a safe space anymore. They're basically talking about Florida like it's not part of America anyway. Good. Yeah. I mean, if DeSantis decided to all of a sudden push for Florida to separate from the United States, do you really think the elites in Washington would really be that upset? They almost want to push Florida out. So I do think there is a path even that way that they're going to be like, it's just not worth it. to keep some of these. Now, there's some, I mean, only certain states could get away with that. You know, a Florida, a Texas, something like that. I mean, Ohio isn't going to be leaving anytime soon. I mean, we're just kind of stuck here. But so I do think that that's because the other options of fighting some type of violent way will just get crushed. I mean, even if you want to claim it's some type of moral or something like that, we're just going to get crushed.
Yeah, I think that we're heading towards something, and I almost feel like the left is okay with breaking apart. It's like, part of me, if I didn't have children, I'd be like, let them win everything, give them everything they want, let them see the disaster that will come of what they actually want. I don't think any of them understand how devastating their policies would be. If
I mean, that's California. That's where California's going.
Yeah. So, all right, listen, we only got Eric for another 20 minutes. So let's get to the Ben Shapiro clip. So Ben Shapiro and Russel Brand did a show the other day, and Ben Shapiro gave his understanding of Judaism versus Christianity. And it was such a Protestant understanding of Christianity. And I thought it was an interesting clip to play. And I thought maybe it would be good for us to just go over it and just explain how off
now,
Ben is.
Did you debrief Eric on the code words we use?
So when we're speaking of, Ben Shapiro's ethnic background, we call them Amish just to avoid.
Okay.
To avoid.
You guys saw what happened in my video on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it just got crushed by the
Just
YouTube
tanked.
algorithms. I mean, just tanked. I mean, I had less than 5% of my normal live audience when I had a title with the wrong code word, and the algorithm just was like, we're just, and I kind of thought it might happen a little bit, but I had no idea it was going to be that effective. I was like, wow. So I'm with you, the Amish,
Yeah, we just say Amish because there's no anti-Amish defamation league.
That's right.
Well, that no Amish are watching.
They don't have electricity, so I figured. All right, Rob, let's run that Shapiro clip real quick. Let's see where we're at.
Judaism, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Yeah. I think that's fair. I mean, in my understanding of Judaism, obviously, because who else's would apply? But it's I think Christianity comes at it from the other way, and there's a reward in it and there's a risk in it. The reward in it, Christianity says you believe the thing, therefore you do the thing. Judaism says you do the thing, therefore you believe the thing.
Wow.
Right. So Judaism,
you take the prescription and you will experience God.
Right.
Christianity, experience God, experience Christ.
And because you're doing that, then you'll do the good thing.
You do the right thing.
Right. And so the problem, cool. the reward of that is that the access point in some ways for Christianity is a lot easier, right? You experience a transcendent moment.
Yeah.
And now the transcendent moment is supposed to animate your life. The danger is transcendent moments disappear real fast, right? You have a transcendent moment and right now you're feeling God. And then 5 minutes from now, you're not feeling God, right? I mean, if that's the message of the book of Exodus, where they receive the Torah, the 10 commandments on Mount Sinai, and 5 minutes later, they're building a golden calf, right? The transcendent moment ends, you're building a golden calf.
You idiots.
Right.
Well, you're not listening.
Exactly.
Well, no, it's this now. It's this. I think we're going to go with the golden cow.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Talmud just explained to you.
Exactly. So but I think that, the best advice and I think that gap has been sort of closed in the sense that Christianity then re-ritualized a lot of things, right? Christians still go to church, even if they're not feeling it that day, or they still are enjoying to give charity, even if they're not feeling it that day.
All discipline is this.
All discipline is this. But so I think that, when it comes to raising kids, to get back to the question you asked earlier, it's not enough to provide kids with kind of general principles. You have to give them a thing to do and a purpose and a role to play every single day. I'm very big into the idea that human beings have roles. I don't think that the idea of human beings without roles really exists. I think that a human being living on a desert island by himself is not free. I think he's the greatest prisoner of all. Ask anybody who's been put in solitary confinement how free they are, right? Even if there were no boundaries, even if there were no walls, even if there were no doors, right? You're living on a desert island. You're not free. You have to have a role and a thing to do in life. You have to have a purpose and you have to have a meaning, and that comes with rules, right? That's the uncomfortable part. The purpose comes with a set of rules that, generally speaking, allow you to best achieve that purpose, but on average. I mean, there are always going to be exceptions to the rule, right? There are always going to be a group of people for whom the rules are really, really tough, and it's asking a lot of them, and that's a real challenge. And we as a society have to say, okay, well, the rules still apply, but we understand that you're having a really tough time with the rules. I think one of the things that we've done as a society, however, is we've taken the people to whom the rules are the toughest to apply, and we've said, well, because it's very hard for this person to apply this rule in their life, the rule should just be obliterated because the rule is very uncomfortable for people. And
I think, if I may interject at this point,
let's turn it off, Rob. Let's just the values. So it's like he's actually right. So like I remember before I understood Catholicism, my original conversion was through like a Protestant preacher on my way home from Atlantic City. And I remember feeling like I was saved, but I didn't have my Catholic foundation to understand the sacraments and what we're doing. And I remember like questioning, like I remember saying the Jesus prayer, like, Lord, I give myself to you and accept you as my personal Lord and Savior several times until I had confession back in my life. And
so cringe, Anthony.
I know I was that guy, right? So, but the fact is, that's how you understand that Catholicism is a fulfillment of Judaism, because as Paul is going around and setting up these Christian communities, when he says, hold fast to the traditions, whether by word or mouth or by epistle, part of those the traditions that Paul's going around and giving is liturgy. And he's forming liturgy in these communities so that they have a ritual to follow. And it's the same reason I was saying the other day about why did they make us wear masks? Because the thing you do, it's lex orandi, lex credendi. The thing you do will make you believe. So that's the point of, that's why you never leave the sacraments. I don't care if you're, you could see in people like Steve Skojak, he during the COVID pandemic, he left the sacraments, and it was a drastic difference in before the pandemic and after the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, Shapiro, this is the thing we always have to remember when you get in your little subculture, which we are as our Catholic and particularly traditional Catholics of that, is it's very hard to see how other people see the world and their experiences, because Ben Shapiro is an American Amish person. He is.
I love that you're doing it with us.
and so his experience of Christianity is predominantly Protestant. And that's not his fault, because that's what, he lives in America, and that's what he's not going to go around and survey all the different, types of Christianity. And his experience of Catholicism is probably mostly like Bishop Barron, who I have written about often, his own interactions with Shapiro. But the point is like, he's actually very right in a lot of ways. First of all, his last point was a good one about like, it is true. We should have rules that we have everybody strive for, and we do not drop those for any reason whatsoever. But then what we do is when somebody doesn't meet those, we reach down and pick them up. That's what always drives me crazy about, let's just say, certain Catholic prelates who talk about just being an ideal, and so let's just reduce them down. No, we keep the rules exactly where they are. And we say, that's where, be perfect as my Father in heaven is perfect. We strive for that. But then when we fall, that's why we have confession and things like that. But ultimately, is a very Protestant thing, because it is that whole, the dichotomy that Protestants make between works and faith, which they, in their misinterpretation of St. Paul. And of course, the idea is that we're saved by, grace working through faith. And so they're all involved. So like everything that Shapiro says, I'm just like, yes. He's saying them as contradictory. I'm like, no, actually, yes to both. Because it is true. First of all, grace always is first. God's grace always, God is always the initiator in every situation. And so nobody is saved by their own power. Yet, at the same time, our response to that grace, our works do gain us merit. And they do then increase our faith. They do increase our belief. And so you really do have this whole relationship between the two where they interact with each other, initiated by God, but then it is this interaction between God and man that you're really working together for your salvation. And of course, the whole thing about the kind of transcendental emotional experience. I mean, I grew up Protestant. Obviously, I had the conversion to Jesus in my sophomore year of high school, where I gave my life to, made Jesus my personal. I did the altar call at a youth retreat. And yes, Our Friends Forever was playing by Michael W. Smith. It was very, but the thing is like, the funny thing is I laugh at it. It was very emotional, but yet it was a moment of grace. It really did. God really did work through it. And I know when I look at my own life, I know that was a time where my life changed paths. And so I'm very thankful for it. But I know now it is what it is. And you can't live with that. I also was involved with charismatic Catholic communities that they're always trying to get more and more, experience. It's always about the experience. And she's like, that's not, because Ben Shapiro is absolutely right. that if that's what it's based upon, you're going to build that golden calf in a week, after that emotional experience. So yeah, it is unfortunate. I don't know much about Russel Brand, to be honest. I know who he is, and I've heard a few things, very good things from him in recent years. I don't know like his knowledge of it. You could tell he didn't really know, but that would be where it'd be great. Like Michael Knowles, if he could talk to him and say, okay, Ben, here's, where you're right, but also here's where you're kind of missing the boat. The fullness of Christianity isn't exactly what you think it is.
Yeah, I've also watched Ben talk to William Lane Craig, who's a brilliant apologist.
I just read a book by him. Yeah.
Well, he's a brilliant Christian, general Christian apologist. And there's a 12-minute clip where William Lane Craig kind of hammers Ben Shapiro on the question of Jesus way better than Bishop Barron does. Like way better. But the thing that I feel like everybody misses when they're talking to Ben is, well, because Ben's like, well, Jesus was a revolutionary and this is, but it's like, what do you make of the prophecies? Like Jeremiah 31, see, the days are coming, oracle of the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. It will not be a covenant I made with your ancestors that the day I took them by the hand and led them out of Egypt. They broke my covenant, though I was their master, but this covenant I will make with the house of Israel in those days. I will place my law within them. I will write it upon their hearts. So like there's all these prophecies about God will make a new covenant and he will be the God of the Gentiles. And, the Gentiles have seen a great light. Then you have Jesus makes these prophecies and he says, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, and it starts off tiny, but then it's the biggest tree in the garden. And Jesus says, when I am lifted up, I will draw all men to me. It's like, what do you say about those prophecies that God promises his kingdom will cover the earth? And Christianity is the only thing that fulfills those promises and those prophecies. Like why does nobody press anybody on those prophecies? Those prophecies are amazing when you really think about them.
And I think one of the biggest problems in talking to someone like Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro, I don't follow these people in the sense that like every time I'll say something like positive about something like that, people are like, oh, he's terrible at this. I'm like, I don't know. And I don't care.
No,
he's
our only interaction is when we see him with Barron or something.
Yeah. And he's very good on certain things. Like my son really likes him and got his book and really liked it. And I'm like, okay, cool. He seems like he's very good on a number of things. I mean, he's not like AOC or something like that. So, but I'm sure he's wrong on a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of Amish are. But here's the thing though. The problem is that when Christians talk to someone like Ben Shapiro, they need to make the conversation needs to be uncomfortable. And that's what people are not willing to do. I'm not saying you're a jerk to him because you shouldn't be. But the fact is like in the classic example is when, and I'm not trying to boot on Barron, here, but when he dropped the ball so poorly, when Shapiro asked him, should I become Catholic? And he basically didn't say yes. It's like he should have made him feel uncomfortable.
And Ben
like
is
basically like Ben being Amish is not going to save you. Yeah. I mean, that's what needs to be said.
Thick skin. He was
right. That's the thing is, I think he would respect that. I think Ben Shapiro would respect that. I don't think he would be. I mean, he might be a little uncomfortable. The conversation might get a little uncomfortable, but I think he'd respect it. I mean, I remember when I was living in Maryland, working a job, I had a guy I worked with a lot who was Jewish. Sorry, didn't say Amish, but
that's fine.
He was a great guy, practicing. I think he was pretty conservative like Ben Shapiro. He and I would have great conversations where they were very direct, and he never once took offense because he was just a good guy, and he knew I was like not being a jerk and stuff like that. But he knew very clearly I thought, hey, you should become Catholic, and he thought I should become Jewish. And like that's the thing is like this whole tiptoeing around it is just kind of silly. Because ultimately it's like, no, just say because like, do you really believe what you believe? If you really believe what you believe, you should tell him that. Because I bet you he would say, I bet you Shapiro would say, hey, you should become, Jewish or something like that. Yeah. So I think the whole thing is that's the real problem, because then once you make it more comfortable, then you can talk about why you believe. You can get into those discussions of, yes, Jesus really does fulfill. I mean, he's on point with all these prophecies from the Old Testament. He's on point with that. And you can show how really he is historically what he says he is, all that stuff.
Yeah. I think so much of the way we talk to people now has been shaded by women in the church, and I can see it even when I go to my in-laws, and
they're like asking.
Yeah, well, but even this whole idea of just like having women run every ministry in the church since the council, and having female altar boys and all that stuff. Like I saw it when my in-laws were asking me direct questions about Christianity on Easter. Like they were very inquisitive. They were asking me things about scripture. And whenever I would get into something a little controversial, my wife was like elbowing me, like be careful, like warning him. And I just pulled her on the side and I said, do not police my speech when I'm speaking about God. Like I'm not going to offend anybody. Don't worry about it. But they're asking me direct questions. I need to be able to speak about it.
I've heard multiple stories of you offending people.
Oh yeah. But I'm not drinking now. So when I'm not drinking, I tend to be way more guarded in my speech. When I'm drinking, I do tend to go overboard and say ridiculous things in front of my in-laws.
And also remember, when you offend somebody, how often is it because the person takes offense at something they shouldn't? Yes. It's not necessarily you even said anything. You're just saying what you believe. And I think if you show sincerity, you're really kind of like, this is what I really believe. You might say something that might be a little bit prickly or whatever. And people who you have a relationship with, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's just him. And you know, I mean, they probably know you're a bozo. They're related to you. Yeah. So it's not a big deal. But I do think though that I wouldn't say women in church. I just say effeminacy. Like, because obviously we need a feminine aspect of the church, our Blessed Mother and the women. But you're right. The problem is we have effeminacy in that the men who are in charge are letting women dominate them. Women who are like saying, we got to do it this way. I mean, it's interesting. The most I've written a couple hundred, at least a few hundred articles. I mean, actually more than that, probably hundreds of articles online. None were more popular than an article I wrote for Crisis before I was in charge of it called No Church for Young Men.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that thing was going to hit like it did. I mean, I don't remember that. After I took over Crisis, I actually went back and looked at the stats on that one because like I just dying to know because I knew it had done big. And it's in the top 4 or 5 of all Crisis articles in its whole like 15-year online history. I think it's the number 2 or something like that. But the reason I'm saying that is because wow, did that hit? Because people realize it's not. We try to point to these specific things, but it's really just the underlying culture of your typical Novus Ordo diocesan parish. It's very effeminate. I'm not saying feminine. 100%. I'm saying effeminate. You walk in there, the music is effeminate, the decor is effeminate. You got the preaching is effeminate. The priest is usually effeminate. Everything about it is screaming. If you are a young man with even average testosterone, we want you out of here. That's what the message is being sent the second you walk into your typical Catholic parish. And it predominates. I mean, I would argue it's at least 90% of American parishes are on some level like this, if not even more. And then that's why when a lot of people, when they show up at a TLM parish, it's not even necessarily the liturgy itself as much as just like the whole ethos is so different. It's so much like, oh my gosh, this is like a different religion because it really does. It does feel that way. And that's why when I say it is a different religion in practice, people get upset, but that's what I mean by it. And so I think you're right though. And so it's just like to take it back, when somebody like Ben Shapiro asks, should I become Catholic? The effeminate answer is to start talking about Vatican II and how, conscience and all this stuff. But it's like, the answer is yes. Yeah, I do think you should become Catholic. Absolutely. Why do you think I am if I didn't think you should be Catholic?
A great example of that is Taylor when he spoke to the rapper Bryson, whatever his name is. He Bryson asked him straight out, like, is there salvation outside the Catholic Church? Taylor was like, no.
Yeah.
Like he just
that's the answer. Yeah, that's the answer.
My in-laws are actually Lutheran. And the pastor, this was the conversation that my wife was elbowing me about. So the pastor asked my father-in-law if he would come and do a few things with him at my father-in-law's like, I don't really want to go and do anything with the guy. Like, do I really even need to go to church? So I really started getting into it with him and explaining to him how going to church is how you embody the faith and why I go to Latin Mass and I take the kids to Latin Mass. He was so intrigued that my in-laws are coming to their first Latin Mass on Sunday as Lutherans. Great. So my wife was getting upset when I started explaining to them that, look, I will bring you, but you can't receive communion. Right. And my wife was like, why are you I'm like, Nicole, I can't bring your parents to Mass as Lutherans. And my father-in-law is actually Catholic and he got married in a Lutheran church because his wife was Lutheran and doesn't have the background. So I had to explain why. But now they were so intrigued by what we do at the Latin Mass that Sunday they're coming to Holy Innocents in Manhattan, the most beautiful liturgy you can imagine, a high mass, and then we're going to go do something in the city on Sunday. So it's like it pays to actually say what you believe at times.
That's exactly right. That's what I found too, is when you actually speak up, there will be some people who get offended, but most people, good natured, they're like, okay, open minded, like, okay, yeah, I want to check this out. Now, are you kind of prepping them to just kind of experience it and not try to like follow
I told them they're not
along?
going to understand a single thing,
Right.
but what I said was,
you should do something really traditional and kick them out halfway through.
I tell them they can't stay for the mass of the
faith. No, you can't see this part.
No, I what I said to them was, I said, look, the thing is, when we go to a Latin mass, what we're witnessing is a liturgy that has been practiced since times of antiquity. Like we're talking about a liturgy that's been going on since the 3rd, 4th century. You're seeing this ancient ritual. You don't understand half of it, but it's very mysterious. The priest is up by the altar. You don't always hear him. I said, but it's a ritual that's been going on since the time when Christianity began. I said, and I explained to them in the 60s, they changed it over. And that's what, and they were just like so interested. And they were like, I want to see this. Like, this is, you guys are so like every week you go and they see how much of a part of our lives it is. And they see how I'm raising my children. And it doesn't turn them off. They're like, my father-in-law actually, when we went away during the Super Bowl, he pulled me aside and he was like, Anthony, I can't tell you how like impressed I am by the way you're raising your children. And it's just such a beautiful thing that you're doing. Like he really has seen the witness of how our family is. My teenagers are so like, they're just such good kids. And I think he's really like impressed by seeing how they are so well-grounded.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously the witness that's going to be the most lasting, is they see it affects you. If you're just a hypocrite, if you're just not really living your faith at all, they're not going to be attracted to it at all. And that's really, and I feel like that's, most people in America are living very empty lives. And that's sad to say. And so some of them can just, and we can distract ourselves from it by our phones or alcohol, TV, whatever. But I think ultimately what has to happen is some people will see how empty it is. And when they see other people living so differently, and that's the thing is about with culture getting so crazy, we're becoming more and more crazy looking, but that's actually going to attract people because they know that the other side is completely lies and just heartache and destruction. Whereas our side is actually joy, it's peace, it's, it's family, it's all these things that are actually good.
Well, and it goes back to what you were saying. Oh, sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to bring it back to how we started the whole episode, the more the culture devolves into paganism, the more we'll look like the Christians look like to the Romans.
Right.
It will only make us more attractive.
Literally the point I was going to make, that Eric made that point of how the faith spread because they become. Now the biggest thing I see is, because Eric, we have 3 minutes left with you because I said 8:45, but he did say an hour between me and him. So Tom Holland made the point, who the author we're going to interview, he made the point to Bishop Barron, and he said the biggest problem he sees is that the church ceded so much of what it used to do with hospitals and caring for the poor and caring for the sick to the state. That the state now runs the hospitals and the state now has welfare programs and the state does all that, so that people don't actually see the witness of what the church actually does, because so much of that has been given to the state because the state is so saturated in Christian culture themselves.
And the fact is, we have to more and more separate ourselves from these institutions. We saw that with COVID. I'm convinced the medical establishment, I just don't have any faith in it anymore. I'm not saying there aren't good doctors and nurses out there, but I am saying you have to prove it before I'm going to believe it now. You are guilty until proven innocent at this point after seeing how terrible they were with the whole COVID stuff and just with everything. And so we have to build up communities that are separated some. I mean, like the Amish, the actual Amish,
the real Amish.
What do we call the real Amish? The Amish. I mean, now I've got my code word.
We call them the people in Lancaster.
Yeah, there we go.
Anthony had other words for them, but we're not going to use those.
Yeah, I got some Amish stories actually, but I won't tell them here.
I suppose in Ohio, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of them in Ohio.
I just know Lancaster smells so bad that
I'm telling you,
we won't get into it again.
But I do think, though, these type of things, though, I know everybody is supposed to not like Roger Eyre, and I do think he's an oddball, and he's got some weird things going on in his life. But the fact is that I do think his Benedict option, which is very misunderstood, is actually true and a good path. And I think the thing is, most of us who are probably on this channel right now, all like, like Anthony's mom and like 2 other people, they really do live out. Sorry. I'm actually not sorry, but
I think you said that same joke in the very first interview you did on Anthony's channel.
And I don't think he's had any more audience. So it's still true. So I was
gonna say that first time it was accurate, but
yeah, right. Yeah. Now a couple of his cousins have come on. I mean, I like these fake people in the comments. I'm reading it. Like, I know Margot's not actually in the comments. You're actually just pretending you're her and stuff like that.
Most of these people came for you,
so. But the point is like just homeschooling. That's a Benedict option. Going the traditional Latin Mass. Thank you, Connor. Going the traditional Latin Mass. That is a Benedict option. Doing these things that are separating yourself somewhat from the system, and like
Catholic land movement.
Catholic land movement, a perfect example. Like, I use Samaritan Ministries for my health care. And that's outside the insurances. And I love it. And we don't go to like, I've started going to like a lot more alternative care and healthcare stuff like that, because I just don't, because I was going to somebody and she was just pushing the vaccine on me so hard. And I was just like, I'm sorry, but I can't trust you to know what the heck you're doing. And she was pushing on our kids. And our kids weren't even with her. She was a pediatrician. So the whole point is, though, I think doing that, though, that is going back again. I know Dreher's talking about St. Benedict, but it also goes back to what we were talking about early Christians. They were kind of living a Benedict option before Benedict in the early Christian empire, because they were building these communities that were separated in some sense, while in the world still, but it was an attraction to everybody, to the pagans, to come to them.
I mean, it's really like the Israel in the Old Testament, being set aside and to build themselves into a nation. And that's kind of what we have to do. We have to build ourselves into a nation within our nation, so that we can be that Puritan city on a hill,
right?
In a sense.
Yeah. All right. We're going to let Eric get out of here. Rob and I are going to stay on for another half hour. So Eric, I always love when you come on with us, man. You're such a great conversation. And
I appreciate it. I think I have to be on Enoch's show next, I heard. So
get to know Eric Sammons is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Make sure you know what your favorite cereal is, what cartoons you used to like to watch on Saturdays.
Oh, okay. I have not seen any of those. Sorry, Enoch, but I have not watched it. So
watch the Taylor episode. The Taylor episode is phenomenal.
Okay. See, I'm just following Taylor's coattails. He gets on a show. I'm like, okay, now I gotta be on. I gotta be a wannabe Taylor. I just follow his footsteps.
We noticed it went from you copying Connor's guests to now Connor copying your guests. Yeah, and Rob picked up on that. Connor's starting to pick what he's seen who you interview, and I'll tell you, we had Gavin Ashenden on recently, Eric, and great. Because he's been on so many shows, we didn't want to talk to him about his conversion story. And he had a little blurb on his about page about smuggling Bibles into Russia during the Cold War.
Yeah.
He told us it was like an action movie.
It was,
like he gets stopped by the KGB, and they are like frisking him, and they find something on him, and he winds up like, it's this whole story where he makes it like the guy found his keys and he pretends he's gay and he kisses a KGB agent on the lips and goes, "You wonderful man!" And the other agents are laughing so hard at the guy and ribbing him that the guy just goes, "Just get out of here, just get out of here." And they never found the contraband he had on him. That's because great. He acted gay and kissed the guy. He had us rolling. He's amazing, Gavin Ashenden. I hope we get him back on again, man.
I love him. I think he's great. I do hope to have him on again. So yeah, and just so everybody knows, I do know that Avoiding Babylon now has somewhat of an audience because Rob's on it. I mean, that's the reason. It was just Anthony. It was literally like his mom and his cousin.
It really was.
And then it's like Rob comes on. Okay, now there's people. You have a much better chat, by the way, during your than I ever do on my live. So I do actually think one day you're just going to pass me, and then hopefully you'll still let me on at that point.
I try to always pop in your chat because you do 2 p.m. That's usually around when I'm leaving home, and I always try to. I always try to make you laugh, And I think one time I got you to crack a smile by calling you an anarcho-capitalist in your comment section. And you didn't acknowledge it, but you were like this.
What I need somebody to kind of check the comments because I'm doing the whole thing solo.
Yeah.
I do read them a little bit, Margot, but I'm doing the whole thing solo. So I really, it's very haphazard whether or not I see it, because what I really do need is get somebody to help me to kind of pop them up on screen at times and stuff like that. But I'm too busy listening to myself and, my arrogance. So.
Well, you guys know where to find Eric. Eric on Crisis Magazine. He's the, I almost never even introduce you because everybody knows you way more than they know us, but go check out Eric's videos on Crisis. What's the YouTube channel called? Crisis Magazine or Crisis Point?
Crisis Point. I don't know. You just search Crisis. Something. I don't know. It's on
If
YouTube.
you search Crisis Magazine, you'll find.
I think
Eric.
it's Crisis Magazine is what it is.
Okay, Crisis Magazine. That's what it is. Then I don't know.
But follow Eric and Crisis on all social media platforms. Eric, thank you so much for coming on, man. I'll probably reach out in a few months again and bug you again. I always do.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, brother.
He sounds so enthused at that, Anthony. He's like, oh, sounds good.
Can't wait.
He pretends he's not. He pretends he's me, but Eric's. He's one of the first people that came on with me. He's never said no. I've never asked him, and he said no. And he
Have you ever asked him if he has regrets about that?
Well, he keeps coming back on, so I mean, I consider him a very good friend of the show at this point. Right? Like you talk about people that are friends of the show, like obviously Enoch, Rick Barrett, Steve Cunningham. I consider Eric Sammons a very good friend of the show. He's been on, 4 times now. I mean, he's such a great guy, man, and he's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do? You want to get into some of the goofy stuff I sent you?
Yeah. What's this kid with the hair blower? Is that fun?
Oh, put that one on, dude. This one's funny. Guys, stick around because we got some funny stuff we're going to still get to. So we did the serious portion first tonight. Now we'll get to the goofy stuff. Oh, Connor, you'd be a friend of the show, but you never want to come on with us. All right. All right, let's watch this kid.
Oh! Was that flames? People don't realize this. Flour is any fine powder is incredibly flammable.
So there's a red hot coil when you turn on a blow dryer.
Yeah. Yes.
It is a red hot coil that, like, look at this thing. She almost kills her brother.
Well, I wouldn't go.
No, but she almost burns his hair off and like burns his face.
I mean, he's lucky he has eyebrows. That's for sure.
Dude, that is crazy, man. And speaking of eyebrows, my grandfather was working on a tractor one time and he was trying to fix something. He's using starter fluid to start it. And the thing blew up in his face. He burned his eyebrows off, his hair off, everything. I remember seeing my grandfather and he looked like an alien. We were like, what the hell happened to this guy? All the hair.
Hear a funny story.
Yeah.
So in high school, I was captain of the swimming team. And so for, sections, at the end of the year to try to go to state and stuff, like, you go all out to try to be the fastest.
I was on the swim team too.
Yeah, waiting for the punchline.
No, I was on the swim team too. I was on LSA, Levittown Swimming Association, when I was a kid.
Oh, nice.
I came in second place in breaststroke, but go ahead.
You shave your head, and some people will shave their arms and legs and stuff to try to make it more aerodynamic. So I think it was junior or senior year. Someone's like, I dare you guys to shave off your eyebrows too. So me and a friend did do that, and like, especially back then, my hair was even lighter than it is now. It was like pure blonde. So like,
yeah,
it took. My mom actually didn't notice that I had my eyebrows shaved off for a week until my friend went up to her and was like, "Hey, well, how do you feel about Rob shaving his eyebrows off?" And she's like, "He did what?"
Mom, you haven't looked at me in a week.
I was like, Mom, how mad can you possibly get at me? You didn't notice.
How long did it take to grow them back in?
A while, and to be honest, they've been kind of screwed up ever since.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, because my wife like overplucked her eyebrows so much that like she has to go for that threading thing. Like she has to go get her eyebrows threaded like once every 3 months because they're so thin you could barely see them. Like if she doesn't put makeup on them, women do.
Yeah,
that.
mine have. I shouldn't have done it. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yeah, because eyebrows, like in the early days of trans swimmers. The thing is, like, your eyebrows, like, you don't get your eyebrows like your haircut or your fingernails, like, they don't grow like that. Like, every once in a while, but like,
now
really not like that.
Every once in a while I'll get like one single hair on them that gets like this long. I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah, you got to pull one hair out. How do you think that conversation was with Eric? You think that was I thought that was a great conversation, right? Like,
yeah, it was good.
I thought it was like we did pretty seamless with it. Play the video of the guy in New York.
Now, is this one I should not play the sound on?
You could play the sound. It might say shit or something like that, and then we'll get into the two that you sent, because those two are really, like, we really got to talk about those. But this is just insanity in New York City. So look, this is how it starts off. Watch where this thing goes. You're not gonna believe it. Like, they show him mercy here.
I ain't gonna fight. He look like he about to get I said it.
Now you think he's going for
Hold on.
a going or something?
Is he gonna pull out a gun and shoot them all? Because I'm not going to show that.
Yeah, you can't show that on YouTube. Nobody gets hurt, but it's crazy what he does. Oh! Got a hatchet.
No one gets hatcheted to death, right?
Nobody gets hatcheted. No,
okay.
He just scares the crap out of everybody.
You better tell, boy. Yo.
Like, that's the most that happens. All right, pause it real quick, because look, this kid never, like, he was just sitting at that table. His girlfriend or his wife or something is there with him. Like, you see a guy in a mental rage like this, he should have been positioned up in front of his girl, ready to protect his girl. Like, this video made me really angry, because it happened. I saw one the other day where some guy was approaching a guy. Like, when your girl is around or your children are around and you're a man, like, if you see somebody flying off the handle, we were in the city last week for the Easter Vigil, and my head was on a swivel the whole time, just because this is what I see every day. Like, I'm in the city every day and I see it. My head was on a swivel the whole time we were there, like, waiting for somebody to step out of line with my wife or kids. I would have killed somebody if I had to, you know? But all right, you can finish playing it out.
Yeah, that's why I keep my knife on me all the time, man. Shit like this, you never know. I know, man.
Like, he's in that girl's face right now. Look at this. Look at the girl protecting the boyfriend. You see the girl protecting the boyfriend? Like, you can even turn it off now. That's about it. It's just, like, look at that. The girl protecting the boy. Like, what has come to the, like, that guy, when he was turned around, the guy there should have just went and threw him in a chokehold and just put this guy down. He's got a hatchet. I mean, you're going to take the chance to get
MC Hatchet.
But if your girl's there with you, man, like, your job as a man is to protect your girl. Like, I don't know. I'm so, like, I have like avoided fights my whole life, but I was at a restaurant one time, and I'm there with another couple and my wife, and we're hanging out in like the lounge area before we were seated at our table. There's a group of guys there, about 10 guys. And this one guy keeps checking out my wife. And I'm, I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't care if he looks. He goes over and my wife had like a scarf on and he tugs my wife's skirt and he thinks, I mean, not her skirt, the scarf, thinking I don't see it. And I see him tug on her scarf. And I'm like 23 years old at this point. I lost it, dude. I grabbed this kid and he had 10 of his friends with him. I had one guy with me. I threw this kid into the wall. I dented the whole wall. I scared this kid so bad that none of his friends even stepped to me because they were like, whoa, this kid, because it was my wife. It wasn't even my girlfriend at the time. I was 24 years old, 23 years old. Scared him and his friends so bad that after we sit down at the table, I wanted to reassert like how dominant I was. They were still out in the lounge and I walked out there by myself and I went outside and had a cigarette and I just sat there and I stared them all down. 10 guys and I just sat there and stared them all down. I'm waiting, come out. Let me see what happens. Like, do not mess with my girl, man. I don't care if you could punch me in the face and I'll let it go. Do not mess with my girl. I'll kill somebody. Like, there's a limit, and that's my line. Yeah, Terry's right. It's so backwards. Like it's so backwards. Like the women protecting the men. It's enraging. It's like, yeah, look, I've been spit on. I got spit on the other day. Did I tell that story yet?
You have not told that story yet.
On air, right? So Good Friday, I'm working, and the night before I watched The Passion. And what does it say? They didn't want to wake up with a horse. Yeah, well, when I get mad, the guinea comes out of me. I start talking like Tony Soprano. So I'm in the city and I have parking signs up for the job we're about to do. And a guy parks his car in the spot, seeing the signs there. And I walk over and I'm like, sir, you can't park here. And he's yelling at me. He's Chinese, and I don't understand a word he's saying. And I'm like, you have to leave. So he pulls out of the spot and clips me with his mirror as he's pulling out. Like, I didn't hit his mirror. He hit me with his mirror. He slams on his brakes, gets out of his car. And I'm like, what? You just hit me with your car. Like, what do you want? And the guy's right in my face, 2 inches from my face. You stupid American. And I just started laughing at him. I'm like, stupid American? That's the insult you come up with? And the guy, he's standing right at his door. He opened his door and I'm standing at his door and he's like right in my face. He spits in my face, jumps back in his car and takes off. And he gets stuck behind another car and he's 100 feet up the road. And my whole crew is with me. And I'm like, my whole crew is like, go get him. I'm like, just stop, let it go. Because I had the scene from Jesus in front of the Sanhedrin when they spit in his face the night before. And I just said, no, I'll endure it. And I will deal with things like that if it's me. But if something happens to my wife or kids, it's something clicks in me where I just go into protector mode. It's like your job as a man is to lead, provide, protect, and be priest. Mm-hmm. Like I've been trying to stress that to my son lately, that like, yeah, leader, provider, protector is your main 3 roles, but we always leave out priest. Because a man has a very special role where he has to be the priest of his children's souls and his wife's soul. So you have to, like, if you see your children getting into something, it's like you have to really protect your children's soul and you know, raise the red flags and the warning signs and talk to them about those things. So yeah, I feel like we always leave that portion out. Being the priest in your home, especially in a time of crisis when there are no priests, is the most important thing you can do as a man.
Yeah, COVID was a good example of that.
It's like, what were we let's get to the dog video, because that's a perfect
dog
segue
video
into, let's get to the dog video, because this is a perfect example of a father not protecting his children, and it's enraging.
Yeah, it's
of reflection, we came to the conclusion that we all make mistakes in this life and forgave our boys.
So
for anyone who doesn't know, that
you tweeted this out today, so you give the backstory. What happened here?
That dog, they came into the room or whatever, and that dog was tearing the face apart of this little girl, and they don't know what they don't know what precipitated it, but I think that's kind of pointless. It doesn't matter what precipitated it. So they just decided that they'd give the dog another chance to rip the face off of one of their children again, because why not, right?
It's like,
I mean, you can see they call the dog their boy. They pretend they can forgive an animal. You can't forgive an animal because it's not a rational creature.
Now, you said something earlier that was like about people's relationships with their pets. That was like spot on.
It's disordered. It's 100% disordered. It's against the natural order. The natural order is that yes, we are given. We are stewards of animals and of the earth, and we are, of course, to care for them and whatnot. But they are just animals. No matter how much you love your dog or your cat or whatever, it is just a flipping animal. It is below us in the order of creation.
This isn't your child, and your actual child just got her face mauled by this animal. Now, that father had a job to literally put that dog down immediately. So we've had 2 dogs, right? The first dog I got was, I was driving through the city and a guy was holding a 2-week-old pit bull out his car window doing 50 miles an hour. And I thought he was going to throw the dog out the window, but he was trying to sell it and he was showing it to the people on the sidewalk. Anybody want a pit bull? Anybody want a pit bull? And I was so horrified that I thought this guy was going to kill the dog that I went up and I was like, bro, I'll take the dog. It was a 2-week-old pit bull puppy. The thing was so freaking cute, man. We named him Bowser. So I bring this dog home and we had him for like 6 months, but he got so powerful. Like so powerful that my wife couldn't walk the dog, and he growled at my daughter, and that was a wrap for me. Because you hear stories about pit bulls all the time, and it's like you hear people say all the time, it's like, oh no, the pit bull, he was the gentlest dog in the world, and it's like I didn't even click in my head that like this was. I mean, I don't think it was a purebred pit bull or anything, but it definitely had that boxer terrier look to it, And once that thing growled at my kid. That was it. I went on Craigslist. I put an ad up. Somebody came and got it that day. The second dog I had was a hound, and he was a great dog. And my son's friend came over, and he must have like teased the dog, but the dog bit my son's friend's finger, and my son it hurt his finger. Man, this dog never showed a sign of aggression ever before that. He was an angel with my kids. My daughter used to ride his back like he was a horse. He never showed. But once he bit my son's friend's finger, I had to get rid of the dog. Like, you can't keep a dog in your home that could possibly happen. Plus the kid, my son's friend, like his father was so gracious with me because I mean, I felt horrible about it, but like they could have sued me. They could have, the kid had to go get stitches in his finger. They could have sued my homeowner's insurance. The father's like, look, these things happen. Don't worry. I was like, I have to get rid of this dog, So we wound up finding an old man who like he was in his 60s and he just lost his wife. And he was home alone. His wife had passed. His kids were all out of the house. And we checked in with him recently, like a few months back. And he was like, this dog has been the greatest thing that ever happened to me. He's his best friend now. It's like the guy was lonely. And we wound up giving the dog a good home and a good owner and stuff. But you can't have an animal in your house.
Because what these parents did to this little girl is they told her, whether they realized it or not, they told her that they love that dog as much or more than they love her. That they care more about the dog than they do about her. And whether or not that girl realizes at this point, like that is going to seep into her psyche. It's going to it's going to form her whole worldview now that her parents did not get rid of the animal that mauled her.
It's so crazy. That kid's traumatized and they don't even realize it. Like exactly what you're saying. That her whole worldview is, okay, this animal means more to my parents than I do.
It's like I forget the case, but there was I think you and I have talked about it. I don't know if we've talked about it on show, but the case where some neighbor or friend of a dad raped the dad, the guy's little girl.
Yeah.
And so he goes and he murders this guy.
Yeah.
And there was proof, like there was no question. The guy admitted it. And of course, I forget. I think he did go to prison for murdering the guy. And I think at a later date, someone asked his daughter, like, what do you feel about like this? Do you wish your dad didn't do that? And she was like, no, because that told me how much he loved me.
Yeah.
That he was
absolutely.
willing to stand up for me and protect me.
Yeah, there's actually a video of a guy. There's a video of it where a guy molested a little boy, and the boy's
Harry
father.
Plachette.
Yeah, the boy's father goes to the courthouse and shoots the freaking guy in the courthouse. This camera.
No, it was the airport.
Oh, the airport.
The guy
it
was flown in from California, and he was waiting there. And as he walked by, he turned around, put a revolver right up to his head, and shot him. And the best part is
he got off jail time.
Yep.
The jury said this was reasonable. Like they look, you do something like that, you go before a jury, and you're just like, this guy hurt my child. Like, the guy hurt my child.
Him and his wife got a divorce from the whole thing, but they later asked his wife if she regretted him doing it. And she's like, or if she was upset that he did it. She's like, I was upset he didn't ask me to drive him there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, look, you have a duty as a man to protect your family. It's like that father said, you know, I don't care about the consequences. This guy hurt my child. Like, I'm gonna go and take care of this, you know. And I think they ruled it was like justifiable homicide. Like, it was justifiable.
It was Louisiana, so yeah.
Yeah. And then the last story we had was also one that you brought up, and it's a couple of Amish guys mistreating a couple of nuns.
Let me pull up.
What we hear about is how this group of people deals with so much hate, and I was repulsed by this video.
Here we go.
Group of
Amish guys walking by, spit on the nuns. It's just like, I mean, it's
and that's in Israel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's reprehensible, man. It's like even I don't know. I couldn't imagine doing that to any woman. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's a man. Like, I don't know. It's just such an insane. Like, there is a version of toxic masculinity. There really is. Like, I would say Andrew Tate is that version of toxic masculinity.
Non-Christian masculinity is toxic masculinity, and I would even go so far to say it's non-Catholic.
Yeah,
masculinity is not his toxic masculinity.
Yeah, toxic masculinity is like a guy who thinks he's a womanizer, like a womanizer. That's toxic masculinity. Absolutely is, you know, a guy who degrades women. That's toxic masculinity. That's like you have a role as a man to, like, we have to remember, like, back to the days of chivalry when we had that devotion to the Blessed Mother. Like, you have to lift women up. And the reason men have that attitude towards women is because women are acting the way they are. And it's just this vicious cycle that everybody's caught in because women are acting like garbage and men act like garbage. I mean, you see, there are women who will get up in the face of a man and act like I have a video like that I'm going to send you real quick. We'll play that before we go.
But so I mean, toxic femininity and toxic, I mean, it all stems from the Garden of Eden. You know, toxic femininity in that is Eve pushing this evil onto her husband, and the toxic masculinity is giving into that, and then blaming Eve for it after.
Absolutely. It's like the Adam had a job to protect his wife from the snake, from the serpent, and instead of protecting her, he let his guard down and let the serpent into the garden, and then Eve is tricked by the serpent, and then Adam tries to pass the buck to her. When God confronts him, he says, no, the woman you gave me, she tricked me, you know? So I just sent you a video. Did it go through yet?
Yep, I got it.
All right, so now this is a woman who tried to steal from a cab driver. She tried to skip the fare. So play this real quick and see what happens.
Oh.
He takes her jacket because she tried to fare jump.
fuck, nigga, just hold the checker.
Ladies, don't step to a man, because they don't have the same mentality they did back in the Middle Ages when chivalry was a thing. Like, women these days think they can get in a man's face.
If you want equality, men today are going to give it to you, and it's not going to be in the way you want.
That's equality. You want equality? She grabbed his shirt, and he probably had a chain on or something. She tried grabbing it. He knocked her out.
You can't want to vote like a man. You can't want to work in the same jobs as a man without then men treating you as a man. It's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, man, it's so crazy. We're in such a weird place in society right now, man. I think Eric was right about, like, really just form a community with your local parish, form a community with a group of people that you really trust. Like, it's funny, like, the online friends I've made, like there's Twitter friends, but then, you know, the group we have with Jason, Mark, Connor, and Angela, like when something happens to me, like, I go to you guys. Like last night, Mark had something he was dealing with. I couldn't make it because I was doing something with my wife, but like, we jump in the green room with each other.
Yeah, me, him, and Jason talked for about an hour.
It's like that's our squad. It's like we live in different states, but you guys we're a squad. It's like there was a couple months back I had an issue. I forgot what it was. It might have been something with my in-laws or something. I was like, guys, I got to talk. And we all jumped in, and I think it was a fight with my wife or something. But
it was
oh, Mark's in the chat. Look at that.
No, I think it was when you told everyone you didn't want your daughters to marry an Amish guy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, like that's our squad, man. And it's like I was like, I remember being like stressed and I needed to vent to somebody, and I was like, guys, can you jump in the green room with me? And everybody was there. And last night, Mark was like, guys, I got to talk to you guys about something. Can everybody jump in the green room? And when he first said it, I was like, I'll jump in right now. Let's go. But you guys weren't available. Then by the time you guys were available, I was sitting down with the wife doing something. Oh, you know what? I watched The Whale with my wife last night. That's why I couldn't jump in. We were in the middle of watching The Whale.
So you say it's terrible.
It's okay. So look, the acting is phenomenal, phenomenal. Like I will say that Brendan Fraser deserves the Oscar for Best Actor. The setup of this movie, though, is first off the opening scene, and it goes and proves my theory that I don't care if you're like the greatest ally in the world. Like my wife's best friend is a gay guy, but the movie
we've all seen the acting.
So, but the movie opens and it doesn't even show anything, but it's like you see in the background that he's a 600-pound man and he's looking at gay imagery on his computer. You don't see anything. It doesn't show anything. And my wife goes, ew, like she was horrified, and you didn't even see anything. I mean, that's the whole, you make the yuck face when if you see two guys kissing, like, I don't care. I don't care who you are. It's just a repulsive thing unless you're into that style. So now it's set up where he's a 600-pound guy who left his wife for another guy. Now, it turns out this guy that he left his wife for kills himself. And the reason he killed himself is because he was part of a Christian church who burdened him with so much guilt for his lifestyle that he took his own life. Now, there's a missionary who comes to the whale's house, and he's a part of this movie too. And he's trying to save the whale's soul. He's trying to save Brendan Fraser's soul. They always have to portray it like the Christians are the evil ones. It's like the guilt from the Christians made the boyfriend kill himself. Now the guilt that this missionary is putting on him it's just like, so it is a story of redemption in that he heals the relationship with his daughter.
Well, but it's a story of secular redemption.
But it's not a story of real redemption where he actually attains salvation and actually gets eternal life. Like they just always have to have that negative Christian perspective. The good parts of the movie, I would say, is the wages of sin are clear in it. The wages of sin are clear in this movie. This guy, they show him as a piece of garbage who abandoned his family and ate himself to the point where he could not get out of bed or off the couch. Like they do show that. There are positive aspects of the movie, but I would say overall, there's a very negative Christian aspect to it, and it's pretty gross. It's very hard to watch. Like there are scenes where he's gorging himself with so much food that you want to vomit. Like it's really difficult
like
to
those
watch.
that type of video. I forget the name, but I just learned about it recently on Twitter. You know, sometimes I love Twitter, but sometimes there's stuff on there
are exposed.
I do not want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, there was that girl, like a day in the life, right?
Right. Yeah, geez. Her mom bought her like what was it, like 19,000 calories worth of.
Yeah, it's like the mother enabling this girl who honestly would be so pretty if she lost the weight. Like, and she's like 400 pounds, this girl, and you just see her stuffing her fan. It's like the mother enabling her, taking a one fast food joint after another. It's like, it's a sad thing. It's like anything, and the girl putting it on social media. It's like, look, first off, I'll never criticize anybody with a food addiction, because first off, I have a food addiction, like, and that was blaringly clear during Lent because I struggled so hard with my food intake, right? And it's not like a drug where, like, if you have a Coke habit or a drinking habit, you go to AA or you go to NA,
right? You can go cold turkey.
Cold turkey,
you can't
never
do that with food.
No, you have to still eat. So it's not like you cut that drug out of you. You cut the people out that associate you with that drug. You can't do that with food. So like a food addiction is something it's really, people should not make fun of anybody who's overweight. People should really have compassion for it, because I mean, I know so many people in my life, and myself included, who struggle with food addiction. It's a very difficult one to struggle with, right? Yeah, Mark too. All of us, like, that's the other thing, like our squad, like we like having each other to talk to about Lent, because it's very difficult with Lent, where if you're bragging about your penance, like, you're defeating the purpose, right? But if you go to a group of people who you're being accountable to and you just talk to about it, you're not bragging about it, you're just talking to each other about it. It was really nice having that group to be able to talk to about with each other and say, hey, look, this is the progress I'm making. I'm struggling with this. Like Mark came right out and he said Lent almost killed him.
I was gonna say, for those of you who haven't seen it, the Tradman podcast did a video about Lent. Very, very good. They get very real in a good way. So head over to the Tradman podcast to check that out.
Yeah, the Tradman podcast, man. I'll tell you, like, they're so honest. Like they're very similar to our show. So if you guys aren't subscribed to Tradman, definitely go over there. Those guys they're our best friends. I would say that, right? Like we talk every single day. I talk to you guys more than I talk to anybody else. So
100%.
All right, man. Let's wrap this thing up. Also, go subscribe to Plotlines and Integrated with Erica
Angela.
I did that. I've done that so many times. Angela Erickson. Integrated with Angela Erickson, and Plotlines with Connor McHugh.
What do we have coming up? Do we have Father Isaac this weekend?
I haven't set a date with Father Isaac yet. I'm sure if I text him, he'll come right on, but we do have Father Isaac coming on maybe next week. I think I'm also getting Father Laval on here next week too. So
we don't have any. So that the Father Laval is probably next Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that on Wednesday. I might do that alone.
Other
with
solid.
Them. We don't know yet.
Any other solid show that we other than Memorial Day, which I'm sure everyone will hear about a million times before then.
Yeah. Oh, you know what we got to do, Rob? Guys, Rob and I made a Shroud of
Turin.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me pull that up.
So look, we don't do Patreon. We don't hit you guys for any money. We made the cool ass shirt, man. Let's bring the image of this shirt up. If you guys want to support the show and you get something in return, not just, hey, we're throwing you guys money for nothing, we made a very cool shirt.
So I've actually done a couple other versions since then because a couple people requested them. But so there's just the standard, and it's a unisex tee. It probably actually fits men better, but it's the Shroud of Turin image on the front and just our logo on the sleeves, small.
Okay. So the thing I'll say about the Shroud of Turin shirt, I have one. It is a phenomenal conversation starter because so few people know what the Shroud of Turin is. Like we all know what it is because we talk about it and we're in the Catholic world, but so few people know what the Shroud of Turin is. And I whenever I wear that shirt, at least one person comes up to me and asks me, what is that? Like, what is that image on your shirt? And then you get into a conversation about the Shroud of Turin and people go and look it up. And when people go and look up the Shroud of Turin, it has an effect. Like I I know people who have converted from seeing the Shroud of Turin and the miracles that surround it. So we have it in men's sizes and women's sizes. It's $30
and kids
and kid sizes.
Kid sizes. Yep.
Me and Rob make like $4 on the shirt, guys. It's like nothing, you know. But
actually, depending on where you order it from, I think we might actually have to pay some money sometimes.
Yeah, if you order from Australia or the UK or something, it costs us money to send it to you.
But so be it. Who cares?
Yeah, I don't care. I want people to rock this shirt. Don gets mad whenever we have a grift. We're the only show that doesn't ask for anything at the beginning of the show. Like, this is the end. Look at the people dropping out of the chat. Guys, go buy the shirt if you want to support the show. We don't grift. Like, we are like the only show that doesn't have a Patreon. We don't ask you guys for anything.
I suppose I should put the link in the chat.
Yeah. How is it on our channel somewhere that they can find it?
It's in the description of every video.
All right, so it's in the description of every video.
Believe.
You guys could just,
if not,
just
I'll put it back there.
Yeah, the Avoiding Babylon selfie store, Selfie store, right?
Selfie
store.
like
okay. Yeah, we got a lot of cute stuff on there for your kids, everything. But yeah, the Shroud of Turin shirt, we've already sold like 6 of them.
3 of them to Australia, which is how I know that.
To Australia. Margot really wants trivia back. Okay, we'll do trivia. I wanted to do a last minute. I wanted to do a last minute Holy Week show.
I'm the one that put it squashed.
It was just too last. It was too last minute, but I had all the questions from last year's Holy Week show, and I was like, we already have the questions. Like, but Rob just couldn't pull it off. It was too last.
I needed that week break, and it was actually really nice and really good. And I got to go to all the Triduum services with the boys and.
Yeah, you needed Holy Week. That's the problem. I wanted to do it during Holy Week, and it's just like you really should be focusing on the Triduum. So you can get one for your dog, Don. We'll get one extra small.
I'll make a special one for the dog.
A Shroud of Turin shirt for the dog.
Hold on. Why am I supposed to say hi to Rosie? Hi, Rosie.
Who's Rosie? Oh, Rosie Gamgee. Any relation to Samwise? All right, that was a bad joke. I'm sorry, guys.
that was bad.
All right,
that's how you know it's time to end this.
Yeah, it's time to end, guys. This is a fun one. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We love you guys.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I should have when Eric mentioned Michael W. Smith. I should have played this for him.
Oh yeah. Take us out.
Okay. Have a good night.
Adios, peeps.
Find the